The E-Myth Revisited. The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber is the most important book ever written for anyone who wants to start a small business. The E-Myth stands for the entrepreneurial myth, the false belief that most businesses are started by entrepreneurs. They aren't. Most businesses are started by technicians who had an idea. A baker who loves baking opens a bakery. A plumber who is great at plumbing starts a plumbing company. The problem is that being good at the technical work of a business has almost nothing to do with running a business that does that work. Gerber identifies three personalities that must exist in every successful business: the entrepreneur, the visionary who sees the future; the manager, the planner who creates order; the technician, the craftsperson who does the work. Most small business owners are almost entirely technician. They work in their business instead of on their business. Gerber's solution is to think of your business as a franchise prototype, even if you never plan to franchise. Build systems, processes, and documented procedures so that the business can run without you. The goal is to create a business that works even when you're not there, not a job that follows you everywhere. The Lean Startup. The Lean Startup by Ries changed how the entire technology industry thinks about building companies. The traditional approach to starting a business was to spend years planning, raise significant capital, build the product in full, and then launch. Ries watched this model fail over and over again, not because the founders weren't smart, because they spent enormous resources building something nobody wanted. His alternative is the build, measure, learn loop. Start with a minimum viable product, the smallest version of the product that can be tested with real customers. Then measure what actually happens. Then learn from the data. Then build the next version. The cycle repeats as fast as possible. Ries introduces two critical concepts: validated learning. Every experiment should be designed to test a specific assumption about the business. And the pivot, the disciplined decision to change direction based on what the data reveals, while preserving the core insight of the original vision. The Lean Startup is not about being cheap. It is about being fast. Speed of learning is the competitive advantage. The company that learns fastest wins. 0 to 1. 0 to 1 by Thiel is the most intellectually challenging business book on this list. Thiel's central argument is that genuine progress comes not from competition, but from monopoly. Not the illegal kind. The kind that comes from building something so new and so valuable that there is no competition because nothing else does what it does. Thiel argues that most business advice points people toward competition. Find a growing market, compete for share, optimize. This is wrong. Competition destroys profit. Monopoly creates it. The difference between going from 0 to 1, creating something new, and going from 1 to n, copying what already exists, is the difference between progress and stagnation. Thiel identifies 4 characteristics shared by every valuable monopoly: proprietary technology that is 10 times better than anything else, network effects that make the product more valuable as more people use it, economies of scale where costs fall as volume rises, and strong branding that creates a perception no competitor can easily replicate. Thiel's final argument is that the most important question any entrepreneur can ask is this: what important truth do very few people agree with you on? The answer to that question is where the next monopoly lives. Good to Great. Good to Great by Jim Collins is the result of a 5-year research project involving 21 researchers and 1,400 companies. Collins wanted to answer one question: what separates companies that make the leap from good to great from those that don't? The findings were counterintuitive across the board. Great companies are not built by visionary, charismatic leaders. They are built by what Collins calls level 5 leaders, executives who combine fierce professional will with genuine personal humility. They are ambitious for the company, not for themselves. Collins also identifies the hedgehog concept, the single idea at the intersection of 3 circles. What can you be the best in the world at? What drives your economic engine? What are you deeply passionate about? Great companies find the answer to all 3 questions and then do only that thing, nothing outside the intersection. The research also reveals the flywheel effect. There is no single defining moment when a great company becomes great. It is the result of consistent pressure in one direction, push after push after push, until the flywheel gains momentum and eventually becomes unstoppable. Collins found that greatness is not an accident. It is a choice made consistently over time. Built to Last. Built to Last by Jim Collins and Porras is the companion book to Good to Great, written before it. While Good to Great asks what makes a company perform at the highest level, Built to Last asks a different question: what makes a company endure for decades across multiple leadership changes, multiple product cycles, and multiple economic crises? Collins and Porras studied 18 visionary companies, companies like 3M, Boeing, and Walt Disney, and compared them against 18 merely successful competitors. The difference was not strategy. It was not products. It was ideology. Visionary companies are built around a core ideology, a set of values and purpose that stays completely fixed while everything else around it changes. Collins calls this preserving the core and stimulating progress. The core never changes. The strategies, products, structures, and processes change constantly. Most companies do the opposite. They protect their comfortable strategies while allowing their values to erode. Built to Last argues that a company with a clear and genuine core ideology acts like a cult in the best possible sense. Deeply held beliefs that filter who belongs and who doesn't, and that provide direction when external conditions become unrecognizable. Thinking in Systems. Thinking in Systems by Donella Meadows is the least well-known book on this list, and possibly the most useful. It is not a business book in the traditional sense. It is a framework for understanding how everything works. A system is any collection of elements connected in a way that produces behavior over time. A company is a system. A market is a system. An economy is a system. Your team is a system. Meadows argues that most people try to change outcomes by pushing on the most visible elements of a system, cutting costs, increasing sales, changing personnel. But these interventions rarely produce lasting change because they don't address the underlying structure. The real leverage in any system lies in its feedback loops, the circular chains of cause and effect that determine how the system responds to change. Reinforcing loops amplify change. They are the engine of growth and collapse. Balancing loops resist change. They are the mechanism of stability and stagnation. Meadows argues that most problems that seem intractable, in businesses, in organizations, in societies, are the result of well-intentioned interventions that ignore feedback loops and produce the opposite of what was intended. Understanding systems doesn't give you control. It gives you wisdom about where to push and where to leave things alone. Shoe Dog. Shoe Dog by Phil Knight is the most honest business memoir ever written. Knight founded Nike and built one of the most recognized brands in human history. But Shoe Dog is not a success story. It is a survival story. Knight spends most of the book describing how close Nike came to dying, multiple times. The company almost ran out of cash in its first year. Its Japanese supplier cut them off without warning. Their bank called their loans. The IRS investigated them for fraud. Knight survived all of it through a combination of obsession, improvisation, and the loyalty of a small team of misfits who believed in what they were building before there was any rational reason to believe. The book's central lesson is not about strategy. It is about the nature of building something. Knight describes the early years of Nike not as a business, but as a calling, something he felt compelled to do regardless of the rational calculus. He also describes the cost, the missed family moments, the compromises, the moral ambiguities of building a global supply chain. Shoe Dog is the antidote to the clean narrative of entrepreneurship. Building something real is messy, frightening, and uncertain from beginning to end. The only thing that gets you through it is caring about the thing more than you care about the outcome.